Hey everybody, what's up? This is Brian Pex. I put together this little video here in response to Ed Shanahan's post in the Master Photography Podcast Facebook group page on Facebook. And in that posting, he posted this image here of this woman that he photographed. And the main issue he had was this part of the necklace down here. It was too bright. Now let me bring you back to the original image that he had posted. And as you can see here, this is extremely bright right here. I'm going to zoom in here. As you can see, it does not match in tonally or color-wise with the other parts of the image. And now that's okay if it's not blown out like this, because I mean the light does fall differently on different subject when you're photographing, but this is a distraction because, as you know, when in photography, the brightest things in an image always are the things that usually jump out to you first, either the most bright, the most vibrant with color, and so on and so forth. They always stand out, and this is not what we want to be focusing on in this image. So that's one thing we're going to work on. As a matter of fact, let me make a new layer here so I can temporarily show you what I'm talking about here. And I'll just, use a nice bright red paintbrush so I can draw right on the image here. Okay, so obviously it's this part here that we're going to want to fix. And what we're going to do is we're going to take sampling from this piece and bring it over here by actually cutting that out, copying it, and then bringing it over here and painting it in. And we'll also work on the chain over here, the little links and the chain itself, so that it looks 100% authentic and very real. Okay, and the other thing in this image we're going to work on is the flyaway hairs up here and throughout the image. Maybe not so much right here. That was a mistake. And just these little flyaway hairs that can be a little bit distracting. But you don't want to get rid of every single one of them, because hair does tend to, be a little out of control at times. Especially this woman has nice flowing hair. So it's expected that there are going to be a few little hairs out of place. We don't want them completely removed because it wouldn't look very realistic. So we're going to work on those things. I'm going to hit Command 0 to zoom back out to the overall view of the image, and that's what we're going to work on. So let's dive right in, and I'm going to get rid of this layer right here by going over here and hitting delete. Okay, so we have the background layer. These are the two layers that Ed included with the file that he sent me. This is the one where he tried to work and get that down a little bit, and it is a little bit not so bright, but it just doesn't look right. And there's a reason for that. I'm going to go, and this is before I get out of sync here. And this was the the hair fixing that he did here. And as you can see, you can notice right here that this was cloned because it doesn't look like the rest of the background. So we're going to try to remedy that problem as well. All right, so let me get right into it here. I'm going to take these first two layers and just delete them, and start off with the background layer, and that's it, nothing else. Okay, the first thing how I would attack this image is I'm going to zoom in, and I want to take this part of the necklace and bring it over there. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use the lasso key, the lasso tool, which you can access by hitting L on the keyboard. Lasso, L, nice and simple. And I'm just going to draw a rough circle around that. And when you're using this tool, make sure that your feather up here is at 0 or a very low number. And there's an easy way. Let me Command D to get rid of that selection. There's an easy way to get to that without actually going up there. When you have this tool, when this tool is in use, all you have to do is hit Enter, and that becomes active up here. And then you can just type in whatever feather you want. But I'm going to leave it at 0. So I'm going to hit Enter again, and it will get out of that little box up there. Okay, so we're back down here. I'm going to circle this like so. Now that activates the marching ants, and that signifies the selection has been made, as you can see right there. And what I'm going to do is Command J, Command or Control J if you're on a PC, it would be Control. command on a Mac. So I'm going to hit Command J, and it's going to jump a copy of that selection. And as you can see, I'm going to hit Alt or Option on the little eyeball here on this layer. And what that does is it singles out just that layer, which is very handy when you're working in a very multiple layer document and you just want to see that layer. It's a good little tip to know. Is to hold Option or Alt while you're on that little eyeball, just to toggle on and off that layer and the rest of the document. So what we want to do is we want to move that up over here. And now that it's not selected, you can't see it because it's blended in perfectly. So we're going to use the Move tool, which can be accessed up here, or you can use V, which is the shortcut keyboard, is the keyboard shortcut. And I'm just going to drag up to this over here, like so. Now, this is obviously bigger than that underneath, so how are we going to see what we're doing? Well, we can lower the opacity here, like by going right up over here in the layer opacity, and we can zoom in so we can see exactly where we are. Let me put this a little darker so I can see the outside edges. And I just want to make sure it's covering that whole piece of the jewelry there. And that should do it right about there. So I'll go up here, put it back up to 100%. Oh, and by the way, if you want to get to the opacity of the layer very quickly, just hit a selection tool like the lasso tool or M for the elliptical marquee tool, any selection tool, and then you can hit the keyboard, the numbers, the numeric keys on the keyboard. For example, since I have the lasso tool selected right now, if I hit 5, it will bring that layer to 50%. If I hit 8, it will go to 80%, and 0 back to 100%. Oh, and by the way, 00 quickly will bring you to 0%. And if you want 14%, for example, do 1 4 in quick succession, for example. That's just a side note in case you didn't want to keep going up here all the time to change the layer opacity, because when you're working with composite images, you don't want to keep moving around the screen with your cursor. That's why shortcuts are very important. But I don't want to get off the subject here. We want to get back to over here. Now, what I could do is add a white mask and use a black paintbrush, and I added that layer mask by hitting this key right here. Or I could use a black mask and use a white paintbrush and paint in what I want. And that's what I'm going to do. And let me just erase this here to show you how to do that. If you want to add a black mask and not a white mask, you just go down to the Add Layer Mask icon here, hold down the Alt or Option key, and it will make a black mask like that. Okay, so now I'm going to use the Brush tool, and I'm going to access that by hitting B. And now, with a white paintbrush at 100% opacity and flow, I'm just going to draw in this area right here where I added that part of the jewelry in. Now, obviously, it's too dark right now, but we're going to work with that. Just trying to get pretty accurate here. And I'm using a Wacom tablet with a stylus, which is very helpful when you're doing fine work like this. You want to get it close to the edge without, I don't know, I just find it much easier to use than a mouse or a trackpad. Okay, so I'm bringing that in like that. And I'm not going to go crazy here and try to get this thing 100% perfect, but you'll get the idea. I'll get it pretty close. I'll get it as close as humanly possible without spending 14 hours doing this. All right, so I'm going to zoom out there a little bit, see what we've got. And it's already looking a little better. It's definitely a little bit light. I mean, a little bit dark. So what we're going to do is go to the opacity, and we'll just drag this down a little bit to match it. Maybe, I don't know, right about there. We can play with that color later, or the tone later on. But we just want to get an overall look and see how it's looking right about there. Okay, so not so bad. So now if I want to make this edge a little smoother, you go over here to the layer mask and you have this property, the properties right here. And I can add a little bit of a feather here. Ever so slightly. Maybe just about a half a pixel. And that makes a little difference. Maybe you can't see it in the video, but I can see it here full resolution. And that looks pretty good right there. But that's no big deal. Don't worry about that right now. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to add some details to make this look a little bit more realistic. As you can see, there's a chain going over the part of the necklace right here. What we want to do is we want to add that chain back in. But if I go over here to the layer mask and use a black paintbrush and erase where that chain is, we're going to have that bright part come back in. And we don't really want that, but what we can do is we can actually use that bright part and make that appear as if it's the chain. I'll show you what I mean right here. Using a paintbrush, I'm going to go up here and change the opacity on the brush to, let's say, 50%. I'm just going to draw in here with a black brush like this, kind of make it look like a link, a chain link. And I'll add another one down here. And then maybe this one here. Like that. That's actually not the best drawing. Let me do that again. I'll try that a little bit more carefully here. I'm going to go like that. The link like so. And then maybe this other smaller link that's like that. And then this bigger part here. You get what I'm trying to say. You can take your time with this. And what I'll do is I'll go back up here. I'll hit 2 on the keyboard to make the opacity 20%, since the brush key is now active. When you hit the keyboard, it's just like the layer opacity. You can go 2 for 20%, 4 for 40%, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to hit 2 because I only want to go a little bit. I want to make this side a little bit brighter, as if it's a highlight on the chain. And there we go. So that's looking pretty realistic, as if it's a real chain. Alright, and actually what I can do, that might be a little bit too bright, so now I'm going to go with the black paintbrush. And now at just let's say 5%, I'm going to hit 0.5 quickly, and I might just bring that down ever so slightly. Oops, let me go with the white paint here. That might be a little too bright. Just like that, just so you can see somewhat of a necklace portion going over that right there. Okay, so now we want to add the little holes where the necklace would attach, because they are obviously in the original. So how we're going to do that is we're going to add a new layer. You can go right down here. I'm going to hold Alt while I do this way you can name them. I have a shortcut, but I'm going to do this for the demonstration purposes here. And I'm going to call this one link holes. You can make as many layers as you want. You can go crazy, detailed to the moon and back. Whatever you want to do. It's up to you. But I like to add as many layers. This way you can keep them. They're all editable in case you make a mistake on one layer. You can always go back instead of having to do the whole layer over. It's always good to have multiple layers. And then we can group them all together and put them in one group. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Alright, so we're here. Back with the brush tool. I'm going to hit D. When you have the brush tool, hitting D will give you the default colors, which are right over here: black foreground, white background. I'm going to put my opacity to about, let's say, 20%, or maybe 10%. I'll hit 1 for 10%, or maybe 20. And going right here, just want to make little spots where the chain would attach slightly. That might be a little too dark, so let me Command Z that a couple of times. Go back. Command Alt Z actually to keep going back. And I'm just going to put this actually at 10%. Put little holes in here. I'm just trying to make this so it looks completely realistic, like that. No one's going to notice. Remember, we zoomed way in here. When we zoom out, you're never going to see this. I'm just going a little overboard here in case you want to get totally accurate, the accurate look. Okay, so now I'm going to zoom in a little bit more here. Now, when you hold down Option or Alt, you get that little sample point. You can choose the color of paint that you want to choose. So I want to use the one a little like dark brown right here. Just maybe put a little bit more in here to make it a little bit more realistic looking. Okay, so that's fine. We're not going to go crazy with that. Now it appears that on these other things on the necklace here, there's some type of texture. So we're just going to add a little bit of texture in here. How we're going to do that is we're going to, I'll make another layer for that. I'll just put texture. And what I'll do, using the paintbrush once again, at about, 10% should be fine. I'll actually use some of the darker skin tone, like right down here. Like that. And just make little markings in the part of the necklace. Or maybe actually sample right from down here, the darker area. Just put little spots in there. Like so. I mean, this is going overboard, but this is just adding that little bit of extra authenticity to make it look 100% real. And then now with a bigger paintbrush, I'm going to make this paintbrush bigger at about 20%. And with black paint, I'll just go like this on this side. Oops. Right about that. Just so it's a little bit uneven. And then I'll use the eraser right here. I'm sorry, not the eraser. The black paintbrush. And let me go back there. Yeah, actually, no, the eraser. That's right. What am I saying? So you got to pay attention here. I'm not on a layer mask right now. I'm actually on a pixel layer. So I'm going to use the eraser and just get rid of that darker part that bled over into the skin. Now you can see the fanatical level of detail that you can get into with this type of stuff. And you can get crazy with it. And that should be good enough for right now. What I'm going to do is get all these layers that I just created. Go up here, click, and then go down to the bottom one, shift click, and it will select them all. I'm going to hit Command G. And what that does is put them into a group. This is a great way to keep things organized, and it makes the layer panel so it doesn't get out of control too long. Much easier to deal with this way. And I'm going to name this one Necklace Repair. Necklace Fix. Okay? Now, this acts just as a layer. Like if I were to bring down the opacity, it would become lesser or more. It's at 100% by default, but I can play around with that if I want it to be a little bit less. And let's see how that actually works. I'm going to go down. Let me put this back to 100%. And then when you go down with the arrow keys, you can go down 1% at a time. Or if you want to hold down the shift key and use an arrow key, it'll go down in steps of 10. So what I'm going to do is put that at about, let's see, that's 100%. It's a little dark. Let me zoom in here so you can see what I'm doing. And let's see, we'll go to, I actually think 95% is pretty good. Right about there. That looks totally realistic. The reason why I put that darker portion on this side of the, I don't know what you'd call that. Let's say the necklace piece, I guess, is because it's closer to her and the light is coming from the other side, so it would be a little bit darker. Kind of like this one, how it's turned in. So just to give it a little bit more believability, okay? Just so it makes it a little bit more realistic. Okay, so we're pretty much done with that portion. Now we're going to go to the hair. And there are a few different ways you can attack this. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work with these outer hairs over here. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call this one Fringe Hairs. It's just a blank layer. Now I'm going to get the clone stamp tool by hitting S. And I'm going to zoom way in here. Okay, and I just want to work on these hairs individually right here. The ones up here, they're going to be dealt with in a different way in a moment. But these right here, I'm going to deal with the clone stamp tool right now. Okay, so here we are with the clone stamp tool. Now the clone stamp tool works like this. You hold down Alt or Option to get a sample area like this. I'm going to sample the hair. I'm going to do the reverse just to show you in case you're not familiar with the clone stamp tool. And then you're going to go over here and it will copy from those pixels over there out here what I'm drawing. You can see right over here that little X that's moving around, that's the source area, and this out here is my destination area where I'm actually drawing on. But I'm going to hit Command Z because I don't want that. I want the exact opposite. I want to, with a very small brush, you can right click to change your brush size, or with a Wacom tablet you can, on an Apple it's really nice, on a Mac you can just hold down Control Option and then drag your cursor right or left for size and then up and down for the hardness of the brush. On a PC, I believe you have to hold down Option, Alt, or I'm not too sure. It's one advantage on a Mac how you can map this right to one of the buttons on the stylus itself. So you can just, I'm doing this right now just using the Wacom stylus. But yeah, I forget what it is actually on a PC, but it's not a big deal. If you want to change the bracket size, you can either go this way, or like most people do, they will just use the bracket keys on the keyboard to make them bigger or smaller. And I think, yeah, and also if you want to make it softer or harder, you can just hold down Shift and use the bracket keys as well. See, I haven't used that for so long, I didn't even know what they were, but that's what it is. To make it bigger, you just hit the right bracket key. To make it softer, hold down Shift and the left bracket key. Harder, Shift and the right bracket key. And then smaller again, just the left bracket key. Okay, that's pretty much, I bet you a lot of people already know that, so I just wasted 20 or 30 seconds of time. Alright, so I'm going to make a nice soft brush here. And I'm going to go pretty small. That should be pretty good right there. And I'm going to sample just from right outside the hair, right here, by holding down Option, clicking, and then I'm just going to go down like that. I got a little too close. Let me go a little further away. Just like that. There we go. And what that will do is it will sample right from the area right outside the hair, so you're not going to really notice any cloning, obvious cloning, unless you have a weird area in the background that is picked up. I'm going to do the same with this hair. And obviously the bigger the hair, you want to make the paintbrush a little bigger, like this one right here. Might have to go over it a few times. Like that. We're just going to get rid of these stray hairs over here. And once you get the hang of it, you can do it relatively quickly. Like this. Try to keep it in line, though. I just went a little bit out of line with that. So you want to keep it in line to where your source and destination pixels are. This one I'll have to go under it. So I'll have to go like this. Like that. That one's fine to me because that looks natural there. Just try to get the ones that are just maybe distracting a little bit, like this one right here. It's faint, but it's there. We'll get rid of it. And you got to be careful. I'm going to hit Command Z, go back, go to this top lighter green. Go like that. Maybe I'll even sample from this area. Like so. That's kind of messy. That's alright. And then we'll go down here. Get that out of there. Oops. I went a little too far. Like that. Oops. If you go too far like that, you can just get a new sample point and do it over again. It actually blends it better sometimes when you mess up like that and then do it again. You can sample as many times as you want over and over. This one is kind of bright, so let me get rid of this one here. Just like that. And well, that looks pretty good. Now here's a really good tip when you're working zoomed in with Photoshop. Hold down the H key and move your cursor, and it will zoom out and give you this little box. And when you let go of the H key, it will return to that area that you were just over with the tool that you were using. So you don't even have to switch tools. It's very, very nice little tip that I don't see explained too often. Okay, I'm just going to continue on with these. Maybe I will get rid of this one here. Like that. This one here. This one here. Alright, so now we want to deal with some of the hairs on the right side. Zoom in by holding the Z key down and clicking and dragging to the right. And I'm going to go here, under here, right here, and like that. Oops, that's way too dark right there. Maybe I should have left this one alone. Some of them can be a little tricky. But, okay, that's good. All right, that's fine. Now, what we want to do is we want to deal with, and I'll click that layer on and off. You see, there's a little bit of a difference. It looks a little much more neat without those hairs wild flying around all over the place. But we still have this top part to deal with. Now, you could try to clone this out also. Oops. Did not mean to do that. Using the same tool, if I were to go like this and go up here, you could do it that way, but then you start getting repetitive background. It looks like it's cloned because that just doesn't look good right here. I mean, I could, I guess, go up here and sample from different areas like that to make it fit in. I guess that wouldn't look so bad. But I'm going to do this in a different way. You could do it that way. But the way I would attack this is I would... Let me go back a few steps there. Put those back in. Okay. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to make a top visible copy of the entire composite by holding down Command, Option, Shift, and then hitting E. And what that will do is it will make a top level layer of the entire composite. It's a whole new rasterized pixel layer, and even if I were to shut off all the layers below, that one is now boss. Anything below it doesn't do anything. For now, anyway. Okay, so here we are. What I want to do now is take care of this area up here in the image. Get rid of all of those flyaway hairs, yet make it look realistic, and it's not so easy. Let me show you why. Let me get rid of this red ink here. If I were to use the clone stamp tool, for example, right here, and just go down like this, you can see obvious clone areas like that. And obviously I'm using a hard edge there. I could use a softer edge and make it look a little bit better. And there are a bunch of tools I can use to make this better. But well, the main thing is once I get down near the hairline, hairs just don't dissolve in mid-air like that. They have a beginning and an ending. The beginning is on the scalp, and the ending is somewhere in the air. But if you clone like this, I mean, this is a terrible clone. I'm just trying to get the point across. Hairs don't end like this, okay? You need hair to be seen ending, and this just does not look realistic at all. So I'm going to delete that layer. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do here. Let me get rid of this layer. And what I'm going to do with this top visible copy is actually move it on the composite, and I want to take an area of the image that has a nice background. Let's say maybe over here, and put it up over here. And that's very easy to do. All I need to do is take the move tool and go like this. Okay? Something like that. But I can't really see what I'm doing, so once again, I'm going to drop the opacity down to, let's say, whatever, 74%. And I've got a nice area there that will be... we should be completely in the clear right about there. And as a matter of fact, if I really want to cheat, I can use the free transform tool, which you can access by hitting Command T, or going up and see. This is how I don't even know. I know the shortcut so well, I don't even know where these options are. I think it's under Edit. Yeah, here we go. Free transform, which is Command T. And I can just stretch this like this if I want to use more of that. If I want to make sure I'm going to get some nice clean area in there. And just like that. Now I'm going to put this back to 100%. Obviously she's stretched, but we don't care. We're not using that. We're only using this portion of the image. for her hair. And how do we do that? We add a black layer mask. So we go down here, Command, Option or Alt to hold down while you click on the Add Layer Mask, and it will create a black layer mask. Now, with a white paintbrush, we can go up here freely. Let me zoom in and begin to paint away the hair that we don't want, because we're revealing this layer that's here with a white paintbrush on a black layer mask. So here we go. I'm going to use a pretty hard edge, probably about, I don't know, hardness, maybe about 40%. I'm just going to bring this in. Now that's dark right there. Have no fear, we can fix all of this later with a tool called the patch tool. We'll get into that in a minute. I'm just trying to concentrate right now on the hairs right here. And that's a little bit too hard. Now I'm going to use a softer edge. Go over here. Like so. And see, the background's not looking too bad. It doesn't look like it's been cloned, because we're using that big stretched out sample from the other layer. And it doesn't look too bad at all. But we have to fix the hairs. So what I'm going to do now is... Actually, what I'm going to do is bring in a little bit more of this. So I'm going to hit X to switch the foreground color to black. I'm going to bring in some of these hairs right here. Like that. And that should be a pretty good start right there. Just like that. Because after all, we don't want to give her a flat head. We want to make it look as believable as possible. And that's looking pretty good right there. Now, some people might say, oh, that's fine. But hair doesn't end like that. It just doesn't end in midair like that. Perfectly cut. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a layer and draw in some artificial hairs. Just little strands to make it a little bit more believable. And I'm going to do that by adding a new layer. And I'm going to call this one Hair Detail. You can call it whatever you want, but it's nice to name things and keep things nice and tidy. Alright, now I'm going to hit B for the brush tool. I'm going to zoom way in here. Maybe right about there. Now, I'm going to drop down my brush size to about 1 pixel for right now. Now, holding the Option or Alt key, you're going to want to keep sampling different colors of the hair. With about a 40% opacity with the paintbrush, I'm going to hit 4 for 40%. I'm going to just start drawing in little pieces of hair and constantly sampling other colors of the hair, just randomly sampling like this, just drawing them. This is where a stylus comes in. You can do it with a mouse or a pad, but a stylus is definitely probably a lot easier. It's a much more natural motion to be drawing with. You just want to kind of, add a little zigzag here and there, just to make it look a little bit more like hair. You might want to add in a flyaway hair like that. Actually, you don't want that. That's the whole reason why we're doing that. I was just kidding, but you get the point. And we're just going to just keep drawing in little hairs like this. Maybe take some of these brown ones here, over here. We can even vary the opacity very easily. Just hit 2 for 20% for a few even more gentle hairs over here. If we want to go for a few thicker strands, we could always, go up here, maybe say 2 pixels. You don't want 8 pixel hairs, so be careful here. You want nice thin hair. I'm going to hit 5 for 50%. Add a few. Ooh, that's a little bit too thick, or too dark, I should say. 30%. I'm going to hit 3. And I'm just drawing in some hairs, making them go with the hairs that are there. Add a few darker strands, like so. Now, you might say they look kind of odd. Whoops, I went a little outside there. We're going to fix that in a moment with a filter. You're just drawing in the hairs like this. Like Bob Ross would say, we're drawing in some nice happy hairs. Although he didn't do much with portraiture, not that I'm aware of. And we're just drawing in like this. Ba ba bum, boom, boom, boom. And just making it look a little bit more believable than it did before. And we'll go over to this side. And perhaps add a few here. Fill in the hair over here. Now remember, this is a way big time zoomed in right here. So, I mean, no one is going to really notice this. But you know it's there, and it definitely looks better on an 8x10 print than to have this odd hair cut off. And that should do it right about there. Just a few extra ones. You get the idea. You can take your time with this and do this really carefully. Just make sure to keep sampling different color points because it will give it the actual randomness of the hair. And with someone, oops, I did not want that to happen. I just accidentally changed my brush size to the extremely large hair. Let me go back there. And okay, and that's it. We're adding it. Whoops, it's still way too big. And now I'm just adding a little bit of here and there. A few more darker ones, not darker ones, but stronger ones right here. And there is the idea behind it. And I'm going to show you the before and after right now. I'm just going to click on that layer. You can see how much life that adds to the edges of the hair. But we're not done. I'm going to go over here to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And I'm going to add a 1 pixel blur to it. It adds a little bit of a difference. I'm going to show you the 0 and then 1. You probably can't see it in the video, but it adds just a little tiny bit of a blur to make it a little softer, not so it's very hard or harsh. And that's it right there. And if we want to, what we could do is hit Command J to make a copy of that layer to make it even more noticeable, like that. I'm going to hit M and then 5 to bring that opacity down just a little bit. And then if we want to shift it around a little bit, we could, I'm just doing this experimentally now. I'm going to use the arrow keys and shift it over a little bit. And then down, just to add a different layer. Let's see, like that. And then because this is a pixel layer, I'm going to go right over here with the eraser tool. And just get rid of these that are floating in midair right there, like that. Because this is the second layer that we just made. And I'm going to put these 2 layers together in a group. And I'm going to turn them on and off. And look at how much more natural that looks. That's off, that's on, off, on. And there we go. It looks a lot better than just those hairs flying in the middle of nowhere. Okay, and I'm going to take fringe and this group here, and I'm going to put it inside another group. I'm going to call this one hair. Okay, I'll shut those 2 groups off. This was before with our bright portion of the necklace here. Fix the necklace, and then we fix the hair right there. Now you might say, this doesn't look too good up here, although it's not too distracting. Only we probably know it, but there's a little bit of a darkness right there. So what we can do is we can create a brand new top stamped copy of the composite by hitting Shift, Command, Option, E, those keys in any order as long as they're all held down together. Now we're going to use the tool called the patch tool. And it's right here under the spot healing brush tool over here, right here. And what I'm going to do is, it's set on source right now. That's the part that we want to change. So we're going to, how this works is it takes, kind of uses like content aware technology. When you move this, it will just do a really nice job of blending. If I deselect there, you can keep doing it until you get it just about right and it looks 100% natural. It takes colors and tones from the other areas and kind of mixes and matches them. That was a bad one. It was too dark. So we can go this way a little bit. And you can just keep doing this until you get it just so it's right. And no one would ever know that this was altered in that way. We can just keep going like this. And then make another one over here. It does a really, really good job. It does a really good job of removing things also at times. This is this is a really simple way to use it. But it just looks a little bit better now that I did that. And I did it right on this new layer that we created. Let me shut this off And I'll show you before and after. It's just a little different. I don't know if it's better, but it's different, and it's always something that you can play with. So, I don't know. This little quick, harshly thrown together video took way longer than I thought it would. I have no idea how long this video is right now, but I hope this helped. And if you have any questions, just put them below or contact me, Brian Pex. You can find me anywhere on the internet with that name, BrianPex. And Ed, thanks for the image. I hope this helped out a lot. All right, everybody, have a great day and keep on shooting.